Democratic leaders in Congress have put off a vote on bailing out the auto industry until next month, when they say automakers must present a plan that shows the money and how it will make them viable. The announcement came after the heads of Detroit's big three automakers made their plea on Capitol Hill for a $25 billion lifeline. The heated hearings offered a preview of the pressures on the Obama administration that it's going to face come January from automakers and a whole host of others looking to get a piece of the bailout pie. Kim, let's begin with you, because this bailout is not just about economics and money. Line up the political forces at work here, please.
Yeah, well, you know, the thing to understand, Stuart, is that if the Democrats felt that this was such a huge problem, they could have given Detroit money this week. The problem is, one, they don't want to have to take responsibility for passing new money, which is why they've been trying to get the Bush administration to include this bailout as part of the $700 billion rescue plan that they passed back in September. The other thing is the White House came to them with a compromise this week and said, hey, why don't you just take the strings off money you passed back in September, $25 billion. It was supposed to be used for increasing emissions, and just let them have that. Well, Nancy Pelosi said no to that because her environmental community went bonkers over the idea. So they're really in a situation here. They're stuck between a lot of different forces, and I don't see how those forces change at all in 2 weeks' time.
Okay. James, Michigan says you gotta save the industrial base. You've gotta save jobs. Is it good national policy, however?
No, and it's not even good for Michigan over the long term. It's clear that the Fed had some role in crushing Detroit's SUV sales earlier this year with monetary policy, but people who read the business section, who read the Journal, who follow business news know that for years we've been reading about the problems in the North American business for all three of these companies. They've had to fix North America. They overpromised on pensions. They overpromised on all kinds of union benefits, pay. And on top of that, Washington has imposed green regulation mileage standards that don't seem to hit their intended effect, but do cripple the big three. So these are just fundamentally unprofitable firms, and until that's fixed, any money from Washington is not going to be it's not going to give you a turnaround.
Kim, real fast, Henry Waxman takes over the committee chairmanship of Energy and Commerce. I take that as a huge hit for Detroit.
Absolutely. The guy he took it over from, John Dingell, has been there for eons. He's been a very passionate advocate of Detroit. And he's also been because he cared about that constituency, he's been a voice of reason on things like cafe standards, on other regulations that are only going to hurt Detroit more if Democrats move ahead to enact them. So this is not a good sign. It's a vision of the more loony left of the Democratic Party taking over.
All right, Dan, I see financial companies, insurance companies, car companies. The line starts right there. Who's next in line?
Well, probably the states and the cities. They all have tremendous deficits. They say they can't pay their bills, and now they want part of the bailout as well. I think we're really getting into dangerous ground here. The TARP idea is getting really quite out of control. Look, states and cities have the authority to issue bonds. That's the way they raise money. If they have problems, they should look to their own fiscal houses to solve them, not cede authority to the federal government, which has been trying to take authority over the years from the states and cities. And, you know, this will create real federalism problems. The courts will watch the willingness of the states and the cities to cede authority to Washington and take that into account. There's a transfer of the American system going on here.
James?
Well, I think the hopeful news for taxpayers is that the reason these follow-on bailouts are running into political trouble is you look at Wall Street, it's a very kind of arcane, hard to understand thing. A lot of Americans say, okay, I'll go with the TARP. The smart guys in Washington tell me it's necessary. People look at state and local governments. They look at union-run auto companies. They know those are losers. They know the money is not going to be spent well there. They know it's not going to make sense to bail them out. So even though Democrats have both houses, Barack Obama, you might find it tougher going politically to get these bailouts through.
That's politics, but we are going to spend money. Our way out of this economic problem is to spend money, and Obama's going to do it.
Well, I think they're going to engage in the greatest Keynesian experiment in the history of the world. We're talking about a stimulus package over 2 or 3 years of $500 to $700 billion. The idea is to just give money to people, put money into the system, and hope they spend it. We'll see if that works.
Last word to you, Kim.
Well, $700 billion rescue was necessary. You're now about to see everybody lining up for this additional money. City and states, which ones get it? What kind of infrastructure? This is going to be really fun to watch the next couple months.
We'll be watching.